Hey guys, Robert and Ingrid here, and we've got a big movie marathon, but not one particular franchise this time. We have two franchises and two just solo movies.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the first one we're going to do is a bit more of a grounded one because we're going to get into the action in the next one. Steven Spielberg's The Terminal. Those of you who don't know about this movie, it's about a guy from a Russian-like small country. It's a fictional country called Krakozhia. And basically, while he was in the air, a civil war broke out in his country. And now his visa is no longer recognized. He can't go home, but he can't go into the States either. So he's stuck in this terminal. Why is he here? What is his reason? We find about that over the movie. I don't want to spoil it. It's a great moment. It's Tom Hanks is in it. You have Catherine Zeta-Jones, so many others, but it is just a great fun movie. Not something that you'd ever want a sequel from because it's self-contained. And yeah, it's just one of those grounded ones. And the funny thing is, Spielberg had once said that he wanted to make this movie because at the time, and I gotta remember when it was like mid 2000s, things were in a rough spot. He said he wanted a movie that makes people feel better about themselves. Well, that's a better time for this one now. It's more than ever.
Definitely no time like now for a movie like this.
Yep. The only other downside is it's going to be a bit dated. You know what I mean? There's going to be some stores that are going to be there. This is back when cell phones weren't smartphones yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were more just still the flip phones and all that. But you're going to love this. All right. So after that, we'll tell you about the other franchises we have coming forward. Next one's going to be really action-packed. So we kind of keep them surprises this time around. So we'll see you guys on the other side. Take care. Hey guys, we just got done watching The Terminal and
it was really good. It was sort of, even though you could tell its age, at the same time it feels very, very relevant to these times.
Definitely. Basically, Victor's stuck there because, like we said before, because of circumstances. But the acting in this is so good from Tom Hanks, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Stanley Tucci, so many of the actors, so good. But and the funny thing is, it's both believable and yet a bit of a fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of feel that way, right? You kind of get that fairy tale vibe because of how many things conveniently go for Victor.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, no one's really a bad guy. You have an antagonist, but even he's like, it's his job.
Yeah.
To a point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, where do you stand with, like, for example, with Victor? I mean, did you know his character growth? I mean, actually, before we go further, there's a better way of describing this. The guy came here for one day, and instead of ending up being there for a whole year, and during that time, he discovered America.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the international transit terminal, he discovered America, what America was, and for a brief moment, he lived the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like with Victor, I mean, where do you stand with him? I mean, do you feel like for example, Tom Hanks' performance, brilliant, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what do you think about his character growth? Like, look at the beginning.
It was really something to watch. At first, you have a guy who only knows a couple of phrases of English, and
that was meant for it to get one from point A to point B. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He just meant to be like taxi. Yep.
And by the end, you have somebody who is a competent interpreter for similar languages and somebody who's actually built things at the airport.
Exactly. Both something that actually looks good, to others that were more for his own personal stuff. But yes, throughout all of this, because like we said, he's stuck there due to his country, Krakozhia, being going through a civil war.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they're not recognizing his visa. He can't go back home for obvious reasons. He is, as they say, in a crack.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the type of person who anyone else in that situation would be like, okay, go out the door, and end up being, immigration's problem.
Mm-hmm.
But not Victor.
Not Victor.
And he could have left, but what would have done for him? He couldn't go back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he could have gone out and done his thing, which would have taken, as we saw, a day.
Mm-hmm.
It would have taken one day to do it, and yet, what would he have done afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to stay in America. He didn't want to stay in America. That wasn't his plan.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted to make sure he did it right, because he wanted to make sure I could go back home.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have Dixon, the head of the terminal. And again, the guy at first, he's not an asshole, but he's still dismissive. Like, mind if I eat in front of you? And it's like, the guy basically was like, oh, I've dealt with this before. I know what's going to happen. The guy's going to just sneak out anyway, even though I tell him all this.
Mm-hmm.
But then once he finds out, right after he found out he's in line for a promotion, he finds out then that, wait, the guy is legitimately staying here?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can imagine how that would look like when the inspection came up. And that's what he's thinking. He's thinking, the inspection's coming. They're going to see this guy walk around in a bathrobe.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get this guy out of here. But he wants to do it by the rules, which I appreciate that about him. You know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah, or it's just like...
What can I do to make him someone else's problem, but do it the right way? You don't see that from antagonists, usually.
Yeah, it's... Usually they're trying to find ways to, like, undercut the rules. This time it's just like, okay...
Oh, he does undercut them, but within ways that he can do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, Victor... Now, the one thing I do not blame Dixon for is him losing the coupons and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That was coupons, which is one of his friends he makes. At first, he is an ass.
Mm-hmm.
He's a complete and utter asshole, but we find out for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's very hard to make friends, but given how he doesn't trust anyone because he's paranoid, I mean, come on, he thought Victor was CIA and Amelia, Catherine Zeta-Jones' character, was KGB because, oh, she slipped and her heel fell off and then he gave her a Payless Shoes coupon. Yeah, but he's tragic too. You want to say why?
Yeah, because we learned, well, he was originally dealing with some corrupt police. He ended up doing what anyone would do and ended up retaliating. And, well, now he can't leave because they'll catch him and deport him.
Exactly, and you could just imagine if it was that bad. Even if it was in 79, we find out, that's still going to hang over him. But yeah, all the people that Victor meets. Now, this isn't one of those things where, like, oh, he's not Forrest Gump, where he influences things, but it doesn't affect him. Oh, no, it affects him, too. Big time. I mean, like I said, here's one of the real stretches, is how he gets a job. Let's be honest. That was a stretch, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was definitely one of the points where it's just like, okay, the suspension of disbelief is wavering a little
Not
bit.
broken. It's not broken.
It's not broken, but it's wavered, where it's just
basically, they like, oh, he works for this other, and there's like 3 construction guys, 2 of which are working that area, and they're like, oh, this third guy's group is trying to do it, we're taking him over. It's like, wouldn't you have to talk to the guy and find out, hey, he doesn't work for me? I don't think they cared by that point. I think they looked at his line of work and thought, like, I think they knew. I think partially they knew. Because that explains later on when he's working, it's like, what do you think he's doing? I don't know, it's not my job to ask him, but it's my job to tell him what to do. It's like, makes you wonder if these guys are dim bulbs or if they're just trying to skirt the line being literal. But again, there's so much. But then you have Amelia. Talk about a complicated woman.
Man, I want a woman that has a ton of issues.
Oh, beyond a ton of issues. I mean, she's a flight attendant, so they play up a little bit with the old flight attendants are horny little she-devils. They played it up, but not in the way you think. She is well aware she's messed up. The woman, and she says, she is always in the air because she is having this affair with a married man, and yet she doesn't encourage. She encouraged him to get to still stay together. And she says, "I'm rooting for the home team. What's wrong with me?" But that tells you that deep down she's a good person who realizes she's in a messed up situation, and I'm pretty sure the guy knows it. Do you get that feeling he knows it? I mean, but again, overall, I'll be honest, this movie, it's all over the place, but in a good way. You know what I mean? It's like, we jump around, but we also get progression. Like, we have the other of his friends, Eugene, I think? Him and the woman we meet up at, in customs, I think, or
customs.
Where the paperworks are. For Dolores, she's played by Zoe Saldana well before she was Uhura in Star Trek, and well before she was Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy. But here, she plays a Trekkie, And find out the guy who plays Eugene, I forget the actor's name, but he's the main male lead in Rogue One. So you have someone who goes on to doing Star Trek and someone who goes on to doing Star Wars, and they get together. And it also leads to one of my favorite funny bits where basically Eugene is using Victor because he's always going to customs to talk to Dolores and find out more about her. And at one point he's saying like, so she had a boyfriend 2 years, what happened? He shit. He shit, like, two women, one man, crowded. Oh, he cheated. He shit. And it just goes like, you, no shitting. It's like, Eugene's trying to correct him saying it's cheating. But then there are times you question how much Victor is really being trolling. You know what I mean? Because later on, when he basically tries, Eugene tells him, I'm her man of mystery. So Dolores eventually asks, who's telling you this? What does Victor say? He says, he man of misery. Now Dolores thinks, oh, translation issue, you mean man of mystery. No misery. And then the way he describes Eugene, you're like, he knows what he's saying. By this point, oh, by the way, how Victor learns English is brilliant. You want to say what it was, how he did it?
Basically, he found two copies of the same books, but one was in his more native tongue and
Bulgarian,
one was in English. And he basically just used that like a Rosetta Stone, more or less.
Now, how he learns the pronunciations, I mean, granted, he's not perfect, but that you can ignore. You can go by with that a little. But yeah, as it goes on, he's able to get a job. He's able to learn English. Again, the American dream of any immigrant. It's like, if he wanted to, he could have stayed. But let's talk about then why he came. Any of you who know about the ever-famous jazz photo of A Day in Harlem, where you had 67, it was 67 or 57?
57.
57 well-regarded, well-known, some of the best of their day jazz musicians. And his father saw that, and after a week of looking at it, realized, I want their autographs. So he would contact all the clubs they would go to, any means of contacting them, and he would get their autographs. Every one of them, except one. But he died before he could do it. So Victor came to America, and that's why he's waiting to do it right. He doesn't want to throw his life away for something else. Now, granted, he then makes it clear the other reason why he's waiting is for Amelia, because he falls for her. Which we kept thinking was a platonic, because it's been a while since I've seen it, but then it's made very clear, no, he does love her. But she realizes, you don't want me. I'm messed up. And that's the other thing is, she makes it very clear early on, she projects qualities onto men, even if it doesn't make sense. And with Victor, through the miscommunication, she kind of does the same thing, but not in a way that's entirely wrong. Like she thinks he's a contractor or a construction person. Oh, nope, actually, well, we see she's not far off, given all the stuff he can do, but at the same time, no, it's like, she's assuming through the miscommunication, because when they had that talk that time, he didn't learn English perfectly. He got better as it went on, and he tried to tell her, but the romance between those is so believable, wouldn't you say?
It is. It's just, you see so many romantic subplots that are so obviously shoehorned in order to pick up, like, oh, we gotta fill this particular trope quota, but here it's a lot more natural and organic. Because
she needs someone who, and I love how she realized it, because first she asked him out, he said, I can't date, so she reads the signals wrong, and then later on when they meet up again, she said, you want to get lunch? Oh my god, I did it again! Just things like that. It's just the self-deprecation. I feel so bad for this woman.
Yeah, it's just like, that definitely rings as somebody that's just like, there's a certain level of like, you've got some kind of like a disorder or otherwise where you just realize, you know what? I know that something's wrong with me, but I don't necessarily know how to stop it from happening, and that just felt very real.
Especially what she says, I'm so used to men 30,000 up in the air trying to grab my ass that when someone actually keeps their hand to themselves, I don't know how to react. I'm like, now, I have heard that there is some cases of some flight attendants, the reason why they are like that is because the whole going across, time zones and all that can throw them off, but I think that's a bit of fiction, but I think they're trying to imply that does apply to Amelia to a degree, and because she says, that's why all my hotels are in alphabetical, and why my pager's always going off. during dinner, because I don't think it's just the one guy. I think that's the one guy she's hoping the hardest for, but I think there's others. I think that's what we're meant to imply, that there are other men out there. Because she makes it seem like there have been other men. Just the one that she's been wanting for, and then she finally breaks up with him, and then she finds out the truth about Viktor, and then she throws away happiness with Viktor to try and help him. Although I have to wonder then, since we never saw Dick, she gets him an emergency visa by going back to the guy. But we find out he needs Viktor Dixon to sign it, but he doesn't. So does that mean it was pointless because he still left, but I don't think that visa was signed. I think that was the case where Viktor was finally like, screw it, I'm going. But because no one was, and that was the other great bit. Earlier on, when it came to again, we're all over the map. Again, the movie was too. You said how he was a translator. That was such an amazing scene, wasn't it? Because basically, there's one guy, he speaks Russian. He's there because he had to get medication for his father. He had to stop up in America, unfortunately, because he didn't have the right paperwork. They were going to have to stay there. He could leave, but the medication had to stay because he didn't have the paperwork. So he's freaking out and everything. So they bring Viktor there to translate. And Viktor, who had studied all of the paperwork during his time there, realized if he had it for a goat and not his father, then that could be, because basically they make it clear Krakozhian, their language, and Russian, close but still, off. So he tried to say, father name for, and Krakozhian name for father sounds like goat. So they're able to do it, but then afterwards, everyone in the terminal loves him for what he did. Now, granted, it takes Gupta to try and really exaggerate the whole story, which I kind of groaned at. I was like, it's like, really, these people are believing your story, Gupta? I don't buy that. But again, the fact that because during that, Dixon slams Viktor onto a photocopier, and photocopies a whole bunch of his hands. They just give him out. You see him all over the place now, everywhere. And earlier when he's trying to find work, most of these people are dismissive of him. By the end of the movie, they're just like, oh my God, and they're giving him stuff like, here, remember us and everything. Or they're trying to give him food. He's like, nope, I'm full. And they're still trying to give it to him. It's like, it's corny.
It is, but honestly, I think that's just kind of the breath of fresh air that you need right now.
And it's the fairy tale side of things. That's the thing about it. It's a slice of life fairy tale. Let's be honest. It's a fairy tale without fully being a fairy tale, but it's that type of fairy tale-ish. Or how should I put it? Fairy tale realism, I guess you could say.
Yeah, which is a fair. That's a pair of words I did not expect to be hearing.
But when you look at it, how else would you describe it, right?
Yeah.
Because, he lived all that stuff went his way, and by the end of it all, it ends on a very fairy tale note, but still bittersweet. Because Gupa sacrificed himself, he's going to be deported, but it was to stop the plane from leaving, and Amelia's gone back to the jerk. The scum, the married man. Which leads to the only bit of continuity issue I have with the movie. Unless some time passed between him trying to get Dixon to sign his visa, why is it we see her leave with a guy on a flight, and yet then when Viktor's leaving, she's coming out of a taxi? That didn't make sense, did it? But, boy, we've been talking a long time about this movie, but
we have.
There's so much to talk about this, because it's a Spielberg movie. It's so rich and so much stuff about it. But we're done with this for a slice of life until a little bit later. Next, we're going to be doing the actual proper franchise, the Expendables trilogy. All the great action heroes in one movie. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
We'll see you guys there. Catch you later.